It is on my bucket list to make my own comic book or graphic novel, but I'm a little worried that my art process itself is not compatible. So today, we're going to talk about my concerns about making a comic, some potential fixes to those concerns, and then we're going to test them by doing some character designs for a potential comic. So let's jump into my concerns. First off, my art is very detailed and tends to be very time consuming. And I'm worried that the time element and the consistency might be a problem if I'm making 200 panels, or even more or less, honestly, even just panel to panel. I want my art to be consistent and I want it to look nice, even if it's simplified down. I'm also worried about color consistency. I typically use markers, and that was my first thought when I thought about making a comic, but I don't want any of my markers to, for instance, go bad, or for me to have to reorder ink or a marker itself and then to find out that the company changed the formula or something like that. I want the colors to be the same from panel to panel. I'm also worried about getting frustrated along the way and losing interest in either the story or making a comic itself. This is something I do want to eventually do, so I don't want to get frustrated and stop here forever. You know what I mean? So those are our concerns. Let's talk about some solves to these problems. I am going to impose a time limit on myself. So I have to finish pieces within a set amount of time. And I think that will force me to simplify the characters and make sure that I'm not spending an inordinate amount of time on just one picture, which would be a problem in a real comic. When it comes to color consistency, I've decided to change my medium. I am someone who jumps from medium to medium, so I'm not unfamiliar with digital art. So I'm going to try digital art for this, specifically so that my colors can be easily picked up and transferred to another comic panel. On the topic of making sure I don't get too frustrated and abandon things, I'm going to focus in on an idea that I haven't had a lot of time to get attached to. So I'm going to choose an idea for a story that I have the potential to get attached to, that I like, but I'm not so in love with it that if things go wrong today, I'm not going to be like, never again, I quit, no comic for me. So those are my solves, and let's jump into the art. So let's start off with the idea. My fiance and I have both talked about making a comic, and one day we floated the idea of a joint superhero comic that would function kind of like a game. He would control the villains and know what they're doing, and I would control the heroes, know what they're doing, but we wouldn't necessarily know what each other are doing. So my main hero is Casey here. She grew up in her family's martial arts studio and worked for them as a teacher, a small family business, if you will. Eventually, she and her best friend Lainey found an apartment together. Casey supported them while Lainey tried to find work only for her to blow up online and become an influencer. Casey got to quit her job and be hired on as Lainey's bodyguard when she discovered her powers, the ability to duplicate when experiencing extreme emotion, and became a superhero. Now this character had the least amount of time to play with design-wise since I have both her civilian and superhero look included, but I'm overall pleased with her. I like the dichotomy of the alt look while she's a civilian with the butterfly superhero costume. I also think it's fitting as her best friend is the one that designs her costume, so it kind of carries some of her feeling and style. However, I would love this character to have more cool tattoos, and I don't think she quite looks cool enough in general as a civilian. So, room for improvement. But then we get to Lainey. And I'm gonna be upfront with you, I don't like this design at all. So, Lainey, my influencer friend, would fall into the mental health and fashion spheres of the internet, and I decided to give her pastel lovely vibes and a cool split hair thing. I still like the idea, but this drawing just isn't it. Part of it is because I found a model tool that I thought would really help me save time, one of my major concerns. But it didn't. I tested this tool on every character, and while I think it betrayed me with all of them and made them all kind of stiff and awkward, it betrayed me the most with this one. I think the difference in body type of my 3D model and the character is what really caused the issue, because my sketches for different body types embrace those body shapes. They help me visualize and plan out my character's looks and the composition of the art. This just made me figure out the details way too late to do it well. But all that to say, I need to fix poor Lainey because this drawing is rough. But I was determined to redeem myself after Lainey, so I jumped into the villains. This villain is based on angels, so I decided she is likely a second in command to like a big bad villain. So very much so like how angels tend to be the second or so in command. But anyways, to go along with the angelic theme, I wanted her to have an absurd obsession with like perfectionism. Maybe that's why she wears a mask, because she doesn't view the extra eyes as perfect. But you know, I'm keeping my nose out of her backstory for the most part, as in this comic scenario, my partner would be in charge of the villains. Once again, that model usage really made her posing super stiff, so that's rough. And I also got really into doing details here that I should not have. Normally, I would love it. I mean, she's got feathers and beads and gems and bows. She's so much, and I love it. But how the padalecki am I supposed to keep all that consistent panel to panel? Can you imagine a fight scene? Lord, this would be a problem. It's also unfortunate because I do like the design overall. I like the colors, I like the too muchness. This just doesn't bode well for the trout population. The comic panels. I'm getting tired, y'all. I don't know why I said trout population. But all in all, she both holds my love and my horror. So let's see what I can make that's actually simple for the last character. Now I realized at this point that I hadn't drawn a single male character this whole time, which, not uncommon, I am who I am. So I tried to at least shift my perspective a little and consider more things my partner would like. And what popped immediately into my head was My Hero Academia. My partner really enjoyed the show back when I initially did this challenge a year or two ago, so I wanted to use that as inspiration. So, he's a child villain in uniform, and he has an amulet that clearly gives him lightning powers. Now, two things. One, he did come together fast, easy, and I do think replicating him across panels would be pretty easy. But he also is kind of boring to me. I enjoy the pendant and the pink lightning, but I fear his personality is missing since I didn't build a backstory. There's probably good potential here though, so if I ever decided to follow through with this comic, maybe he could turn into something better. So I think that's simultaneously great and less great. But that leads me to my conclusion on whether or not I need to adjust my style in the future in order to make a comic. So here's the characters I came up with and designed, and here's how I'm feeling about my concerns and my solves and fixes and all of that stuff. First of all, the time limit didn't fully work because I'm just not as good digitally as I am with other mediums. So the time limit reduced the quality so much that it's just not my favorite look. You know what I mean? And even then, sometimes it simplified the characters and I was like, cool, I like this. And sometimes it didn't simplify the characters at all and I gave myself way too much work, especially with this character. And with this character, I was like, you know what? What if I had a time limit on traditional art? Would it have turned out the same? So I cut my time in half again. So then I jumped in. I just straight up designed this character without looking at any references or anything, just a straight time limit. And I liked her better traditionally than what I had done with twice the time digitally. So I'm thinking my overall solve for this problem might be to traditionally sketch out all of my panels and that kind of thing, and then just digitally do the line art and the coloring, because coloring actually was a solve. I think I was successful with choosing the colors digitally. I think that was 100% good. Now, on the topic of getting too frustrated because I failed, we do have some fails in here. We have pieces that are too complicated to continue. We have pieces that I didn't love, but because I think I did choose a design or an idea for a comic that I wasn't so attached to and my heart wasn't bound up in it, I was able to fail and not feel frustrated. So I am happy that I did that. I will be making a comic or graphic novel at some point, and I'm pleased with this. But thanks for hanging out with me. And if you're interested in my art, well, I've got lots of other videos and you can always join my mail club. I hope you have a good one, guys. Bye.